What if your partner wasn't just a cop, but something far worse hiding behind the badge? Some undercover jobs change you, while others break you completely. I was only 4 months into my undercover assignment when I met Detective Luis Ramirez. He was already deep in, embedded nearly a year into a gun-running operation on the outskirts of Chicago. A real shadowy stuff. These weren't small-time street deals. We're talking about ex-military hardware, grenade launchers, armor-piercing rounds, moving across state lines, quietly arming people who shouldn't even be trusted with a kitchen knife. Ramirez had a reputation for being cold and methodical. The kind of guy who never smiled unless he was about to hurt someone. He didn't say much, but in our line of work, silence speaks louder than any threat. And a guy like that? He wasn't pretending. He was surviving. Something you couldn't see on the surface. From the beginning, though, something didn't sit right with me. Not fear, not suspicion exactly. Just that quiet tug in your gut that tells you you're standing next to a man who's either seen too much or stopped caring about any of it. It wasn't anything I could pin down. Not his cover story, he had that locked in. Not his skills, he moved like someone born into violence. It was something else, something behind the eyes. Like he wasn't just playing the role anymore. He never checked in with command, never showed signs of burnout or nostalgia for the real world. He never cracked a joke, never shared a story, never took a call on his burner unless someone called him. He looked like a man who didn't have a home to go back to. One night, we were holed up in a stash house, waiting on a shipment. No lights except a flickering bulb in the hallway, and a busted old TV in the corner that played nothing but static. We sat there in silence for hours, just the hum of an old fridge and the occasional creak of the building settling. Then out of nowhere, Ramirez turned to me and said, "You ever wonder if this side of us is more real than the other?" I couldn't answer right away because, truthfully, I had wondered the same thing. More times than I could admit. The longer you're under, the more the lines blur. The name on your fake ID starts sounding more natural than your real one. You start responding to it without thinking. You forget birthdays. You forget the last time someone called you by your real name and meant it. You forget why you're even doing this. You forget yourself. And in those quiet moments, between those assignments, between those lies, you start to think maybe this version of you, the one built from cover stories and dead stares, is all that's left. Later that night, the deal finally went down, but it didn't go as planned. A rival crew showed up early, guns were out, and there was total chaos. We didn't even hear them coming, just the door crashing open, and then everything went red. Bullets ripped through the drywall, the air filled with smoke and plaster dust. I hit the floor, drew my piece, fired 2 rounds at the nearest threat, felt the recoil bite into my wrist. Somewhere behind me, I heard one of ours go down hard. The thud made my stomach twist. But Ramirez? He didn't move. Not even a flinch. He stood like he was frozen in time, staring at the chaos like it was a rerun. No fear in his eyes, no urgency. Just this calm, like he already knew how it would end. He stood there, completely exposed, watching the firefight like he was behind glass. And the strangest part? No one aimed at him. Not even a glance in his direction. No stray bullets, no panic. Like he was a ghost. He just stood there, completely untouched. like they knew he wasn't the enemy. When backup finally arrived and the heat scattered, Ramirez walked out like nothing happened, cool as ice, not a scratch on him, just lit a cigarette with shaking hands and said, "Messy night." That's when I started getting suspicious. The way he moved, the way people avoided eye contact with him, even the dealers who were supposed to be fearless. I then filed a report, described the whole thing, said he didn't return fire, said something was off. But internal affairs came back clean. "Detective Ramirez is fully cleared," they said. "No record of misconduct, no anomalies." They practically shut the door in my face. I couldn't let it go. So I started digging more myself. Late nights at the precinct, running names through databases I shouldn't have had access to, pulling old files from locked drawers, cross-referencing timelines, pulling traffic cam footage. And then, one night I found something I wasn't supposed to see, which was, Luis Ramirez died 2 years ago. He was killed by a car bomb while off duty, a blast that took out half a city block. I saw the confirmed dental records and witness reports. His body was cremated and buried in a government lot, with a closed casket funeral and his badge officially retired. So who the hell have I been working with? The file listed no surviving family, no twins, no identity mix-up. No way this was a coincidence. Whatever or whoever he was, he disappeared after that night, vanished with no trace. His burner went dead. His stash houses were cleared out. His contacts dried up. No forwarding addresses, no unexplained sightings, nothing. He was gone. And the strangest thing was that no one else seemed bothered. It was like he never existed at all. The guys in Vice stopped mentioning his name. Patrol acted like he was never assigned to the precinct. It felt orchestrated, like someone hit delete on his existence. Sometimes, I wonder if he ever did. All I know is this: when you go too deep into someone else's life, you risk losing your own. And if something else slips in while you're hollowed out, then you might never know it's there. Until it's already taken over. Until you're just another ghost walking through someone else's story. Some assignments aren't about catching bad guys. They're about becoming one. I was sent deep undercover with a biker gang operating out of the Southwest, somewhere between the Arizona desert and the edge of hell. They called themselves the Black Reapers, and they weren't just running meth. They were moving stolen weapons, laundering cartel cash, and leaving bodies in their wake like burnt offerings. My job was to infiltrate, earn trust, and gather enough to burn the entire operation to the ground. At first, it was the usual starter work, driving small shipments, acting as backup during sketchy exchanges, laughing at their twisted jokes. I grew out my beard, covered my scars with tattoos, and buried the cop in me a little deeper every day. I stopped shaving and stopped smiling. Eventually, I even started to forget where the real me ended and the role began. But in their world, you don't earn loyalty by talking tough. You earn it in blood. So one night, they gave me a test. We drove out to an abandoned junkyard just outside Yuma. The desert was quiet, moonless, except for the hum of flies and the sound of shifting sand. In the center of the yard, they had someone tied, duct-taped, panicked. He was stripped down to his boxers, face beaten until it barely resembled a face. They said he was a traitor, that he'd stolen from the club and broken a sacred line. Then they handed me a crowbar, and one of them leaned in, grinning, eyes dead behind his sunglasses. "Make him disappear, or we make you disappear." I froze just for a second. My grip tightened around the handle. The guy on the ground was sobbing now, trying to scream through layers of tape. I could feel every fiber in my body screaming, "Don't do it." But the moment I hesitated, I saw hands drifting toward waistbands with guns waiting. So I swung. Not hard, not enough to kill, just enough to sell it, to survive. They laughed. One even clapped me on the back, while the others stepped in and finished the job. As for me, I stood there like I was made of stone. After that night, I was in, fully. They started calling me grim, said I had a killer's eyes. I got a patch, a seat at the table, and from then on, they never questioned me again. The weeks turned into months. I moved meth across 3 states. I sat in on torture sessions, watched a kid OD on stuff I had just delivered and didn't say a word. I carried bodies to ditches, lit fires in the desert, and watched people vanish into shallow graves we dug ourselves. Every day I told myself, just a little longer, just one more run, then the takedown comes. Only, the takedown never came. The case was shelved due to budget cuts, internal politics, and higher-ups getting cold feet, whatever the excuse. They left me out there, buried under a name that wasn't mine, forgotten like a loose thread no one wanted to tug on. I remember one night, after a long run, meth run across state lines, staring at myself in the bathroom mirror of some cheap motel in Albuquerque. Fluorescent light buzzing overhead, water-stained walls, and my reflection. My eyes looked wrong. It was dead, not tired and hollow, like something else was staring back through them. My voice sounded fake when I tried to speak, like an actor reading lines in a role that had gone too far. And my hands, they were trembling, but I couldn't feel them, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I tried saying my real name out loud. It didn't sound real. It felt like I was impersonating someone I'd never met. Eventually, I stopped waiting for the brass to pull me out. No backup was coming. No handshake at the end, just silence. So I ran. Packed a bag in the dark. Left in the middle of the night with nothing but adrenaline and fear to guide me. Burned my burner phone, dumped my fake IDs in a gas station toilet, and drove until I couldn't stay awake. When I finally resurfaced, I turned in everything. The tapes, names, accounts, and even the videos, which was enough to burn the whole operation to ash. The department called me a hero, said I did what I had to do, but they never saw what I became. They didn't see the man who watched someone die with cold, dry eyes. They didn't see the guy who stopped flinching when someone screamed. They didn't feel what it's like when the monster inside you gets so loud that you stop recognizing your own thoughts. Sometimes I still hear the laughter from that junkyard. In my dreams, I'm holding that crowbar, and sometimes I'm still swinging. Some undercover cases change you, while others break you. I was 6 months into a narcotics assignment, posing as a low-level distributor for a cartel offshoot operating in the Midwest. On paper, It was a simple infiltration job, tracking shipments, identifying routes, and collecting intel. But behind the paperwork, it was a descent into a world I wasn't ready for. What the files didn't mention were the endless nights spent around men with dead eyes and twitching trigger fingers. The kind of people who laughed too hard at violence, who talked about dismemberment the way normal people talk about sports. I slept in trap houses that reeked of ammonia and blood, shared meals with killers who could sniff out fear like bloodhounds. Every day was a test for me. Could I stay in character? Could I be cruel enough, cold enough, invisible enough to survive without blowing my cover? There were no rehearsals, no second takes. One wrong look and I'd vanish. No badge, no name, no backup. Just another body in a cornfield no one would ever find. And the deeper I went, the more the line blurred between pretending to be a criminal and becoming one. The crew ran product through every dirty corner they could find: nightclubs, trap houses, and fake front restaurants. But the ones that kept me up at night were the massage parlors. Not the kind listed on Google Maps. No names on the door. Only cash is accepted. And always open after midnight. Places that looked dead by daylight. Dusty windows, peeling paint only to come alive after dark with tinted glass, flickering neon signs, and shadows that moved behind curtains. They were quiet. Too quiet. No music. No laughter. Just low murmurs and the soft click of locks being turned from the inside. I was told to stay away. "Not your concern," one of the higher-ups warned me. But concern has a way of creeping in, especially when you start hearing things, like cries, whispers, a thud that didn't sound like furniture being moved. And eventually, I stopped pretending I hadn't noticed. That's where the real business went down. And not all of it was drugs. Late one Friday night, they gave me a job. "We need you to deliver a message," the boss said. Didn't elaborate. Just handed me a burner phone and an address scribbled on a sticky note. Said someone would meet me there. The property was an old, sagging house buried deep in the woods outside the city limits. No lights. No cars. Not even tire tracks in the mud. The kind of place you only find if you're told where to look. I sat in the car for almost 10 minutes before stepping out, in silence. And then, I heard someone crying. It was faint, high-pitched, and childlike. I followed the sound behind the building to a cellar door, which was an old wood swollen with rot, barely hanging off the hinges. The crying was coming from beneath it. I knew I should have left. I should have made something up and stayed in character. But I couldn't. I pulled the door open and climbed down into darkness. The air hit me like a wave. I turned on my flashlight. The beam shook in my hand. There in the corner was a girl, maybe 14 or younger. She was dressed in rags, barefoot, chained to a rusted pipe. Her skin was pale, lips cracked. She looked like she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Her mouth was gagged, but when she saw me, she screamed through it, eyes wild and pleading. I froze. I couldn't breathe or move. I'd been told this place was just storage. Then, behind me were footsteps. Heavy but slow. I turned. It was one of the upper guys, Ramon, mid-40s. Always dressed like he'd just left church, but his eyes were shark dead and cold. He didn't flinch when he saw the girl. He just stared at me, calm and steady. "You weren't supposed to come down here," he said. I played dumb, told him I got lost while I was looking for a bathroom. I even forced a chuckle like I hadn't just walked into a goddamn nightmare. He stared at me for what felt like a year. Then he smiled. "That's what I figured," he said, and walked away. I didn't sleep that night or eat. I waited until the next night to report it. I called my handler from a payphone near the edge of the city. I gave them the address, described the girl, and begged them to act fast. They said they would handle it. But when I drove by that property 2 nights later, it was gone, leveled and burned to the ground. No cops, no tape, no press, just charred wood, ash, and a bitter smell that clung to the trees. I asked my handler what happened. He paused, then said, "Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to." A week later, I was transferred. A new city, new alias. Like none of it had ever happened. But I remember her. I remember her eyes, how they didn't look away, even when she screamed. I still hear her sometimes, in the quiet hours just before dawn. And I still wonder, did she make it out? Or did I leave her there? Just another missing name in a file no one will ever open. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear her screams, which made me guilty till now. They say undercover work is just acting with a badge. But when the lines blur long enough, even the mask forgets who's wearing it. Ghost partners that were never assigned. Tortured screams behind locked doors. And the monster you swore to fight, now staring back from your own reflection. Some cases are closed, while others stay buried. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.